Back here on This Week in Wrestling, I'm Brian Webster, along with Commissioner Gil Bonk, and of course the Silence of the Lambs here this week in Knuckles Nelson. You look like Hannibal Lecter, for crying out loud. Hannibal Nelson. Great job, Gil, I gotta tell you. I mean...
Well, I figured this was the best punishment because Knuckles likes to talk.
Yes, he does.
And once you put the tape across, there's no conversation anymore.
But what about the physical altercations that Knuckles Nelson finds himself in, Gil? I mean, he nearly destroyed the set last week, and not only threatening my well-being, threatening his own well-being, and threatening the well-being of all the crew here at This Week in Wrestling.
Well, I figured that the punishment, putting the tape across the mouth, was enough, because I see Knuckles Nelson as a great competitor. I do. He shouldn't compete.
I don't disagree.
He should not compete on the set, and I figure that the best one as the commentator and announcer is you.
Well, I appreciate that.
And
thank you.
He's a great commentator on wrestling matches that he sees and that he's in. So I think you two make a good team, but just have to learn where each other is, what position they have.
I mean, not only that, but the insults that he threw at the viewers, and not only just the viewers of this show who live in Amesbury, but the population of Amesbury as a whole was just totally out of line. Totally out of line, unacceptable.
It was not out of line, and I can say, ow! And I can say whatever I want, whenever I want. I'm not wearing any more tape over my mouth, Your Excellency.
Now, you see, Gil, this is how the trouble starts.
This is supposed to be a wrestling show. What am I supposed to... This isn't I Like Dirty Books. It's supposed to be a wrestling show.
It's more or less just as a commentator, let's say, for instance, commenting on the show, on the wrestling shows, the wrestling matches, in a seat, instead of jumping around, tipping over tables, grabbing ladders, going after you. Can't do it.
Of course not. I mean, the guy is the ultimate suck-up. He tried to buy you off with a stale cup of coffee.
I know. He'll try anything.
That was a fresh cup of coffee. It was freshly brewed. And I have something very important to say about this whole subject. Can you believe the Red Sox got David Cohn, too? I mean, that pretty much seals the deal right there, if you ask me.
Now, you see, Gil, not 3 minutes ago, Knuckles Nelson talks about how this is a professional wrestling show, and then goes on and on and on about David Cohn. You know, which is all well and good if you're a baseball fan.
Yeah, it was a pretty good pickup, especially the way they signed him.
Maybe you should try your hand at baseball.
I told you I played baseball before, but I realized you could hit someone with the bat, and that led me into wrestling.
By the way, I didn't get a full chance to congratulate you on your television title win.
Boy, you're really going to push it now, aren't you? You're a big tough guy when you got Gilby sitting over here.
Not a big tough guy with Gilby sitting over here.
And if I may, if I could just for 1 second address the wrestling public, Your Excellency, if you don't mind, just for one moment, I would like to say to everyone in Amesbury about the comments that I made last week. I was not including any of the children in the Amesbury area because children are wonderful, children are great, I love kids, and I was basically just talking about their parents.
Do you realize that very, very soon Wrestling Star Wars is going to be making its live-action debut in Amesbury?
Yeah, how much money do you think I'm going to make selling pictures that night?
Yeah, not too much, I'll tell you, unless...
I bet I'll outsell Brian Day.
Unless it's to people who own dartboards, they can tape your picture up there because you've made a lot of enemies with your foul thoughts and comments.
Did you see what they did with the roads over there? Driving over in Amesbury, you can't even drive where you want anymore. It's like it's a communist bloc country now, Your Excellency.
Boy, oh boy. So many things going on in and around the world of professional wrestling, the professional wrestling community and the local community, a buzz about this Combat Zone Training Center. Boy, oh boy, things are happening in the wrestling community, and who knows, maybe one of you out there thinks you have what it takes, and you'll join the Combat Zone Training Center and take some lumps, give some lumps, and become our next world's heavyweight champion. You never know. You've been there. You've been to the top of the mountain
Many
times.
And what is this other thing I'm hearing about too now about free tickets to Wrestling Star Wars?
Indeed,
Is it true that
absolutely.
the fans have an opportunity to get free tickets now?
Absolutely free, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. But I would like to talk about what we just saw. C.J. Summers, El Mascarado, couple of high flyers, the veteran versus the relative newcomer. Gil seems to think that one of these guys will hold a Wrestling Star Wars championship in the very near future. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are quite simply that anything that Commissioner Bonk says I agree with, because he is also a mastermind when it comes to the world of boxing and wrestling. I would change the oil in the guy's car if he asked me to. That's what I think about him. I'm like a son to this man.
Really?
And I do want to also say that I agree with the fact that C.J. Summers and the like are all the future of Wrestling Star Wars, and championship gold will be around their waist relatively soon. Right, Dad?
You're right. I agree. But,
Oh boy, I'm starting to feel like the minority all of a sudden.
I'm not taking sides. In fact, I think the same of all the wrestlers. And I'm not adopting Knuckles Nelson. He's a good guy, but I'm just pointing out the matches that he had. He had a number of matches. He had Big Show, 7'2" giant. He wrestled the Boss Man. He wrestled Bret and Owen Hart. And they were great wrestlers.
Yeah, but how many of those matches did he actually win, Gil?
I've won lots of matches.
Yeah, in your mind.
We all know that I was a World Wrestling Federation superstar, and when I left the WWF, it was under the best of terms.
Well, let me put it this way. When you left the WWF, you had the best record as a jobber.
Whatever you say, Webby.
I want to thank Gil Bonk, the esteemed commissioner of Wrestling Star Wars and This Week in Wrestling, for being here this week and for a fine solution to the problem we've been having with Knuckles Nelson. You know, after you banned him from the show, Gil, Knuckles Nelson went and got his lawyer. He got himself back on the show. Everything was going well until last week, and I'm glad you're here. I just want to say that. And again, I want to apologize that you have to be here under these circumstances. I know it isn't easy.
I know. I thought that the best solution was putting a piece of tape across Knuckles' mouth and stop him from talking for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then it calmed him down.
I agree. I feel like a new man. It's been a very, very humbling experience for me.
Boy, oh boy. Captain Sincerity. Time to get to the top 10.
That would
Here
be a
we
great.
go.
That would be a great name for a wrestler, Captain Sincerity.
Sure it would.
What about this one, Vanilla Pudding?
Maybe you could add those two to your resume along with Super